talking about, he and I grew up in days where organizations invested in these kind of programs. And then what happened is we go through a couple of down cycles. You know, the first down cycle on Wall Street was 1987, for anybody that can remember when we had the first big crash. Then we went through the tech bubble burst, and then we hit 9/11, wiped out everybody's buildings. I mean, so there were cycles of things that went on. And what Fred is talking about, and what Tom is talking about, is that is the ideal world. And a lot of times what's happened is we have embarked on short-term strategies. And the short-term strategies have ended up with 10%, cut 10% from your budget. It's just uniform, 10%. I have been working for companies where they say, you will cut your rate by 10%. And I go, what if I say I'm not going to cut my rate by 10%? They said, you're gone. So it has nothing to do with quality. It has nothing to do with the longevity of the relationship. Some finance guy got a number, and boom, we have to go. Then the other one is cut 10% of your staff. And next year, cut 10% of your other staff. And instead of it being a knee-jerk, short-term reaction to the world out there, wouldn't it be wonderful if we actually had systems and processes in place that made this a rational business decision rather than a short-term, knee-jerk, stupid decision? And you know, my clients on the other side of the pond, so they can't hear me talking right now. But how many times can you go back to a company every year and say, cut 10%, cut another 10%, cut another 10%, where you have now cut into the bone, and there's nothing else? And that short-term decision has fundamentally changed how this organization is going to be able to compete. So that's what I'm going to be talking about, and I'd like you to keep the information on the research out there. So other people, you say, she's crazy. This costs way too much time. It costs way too much money. If we invested this much time in thinking about our people, we wouldn't get the work done. How many drives home have you had mental conversations in your head about how awful things are? How much anguish have you spent in all those conversations that went absolutely nowhere? Think about if you can use it to divert it into something that is going to be a positive build exercise rather than the torment of, oh my God, this is so bad. So we want to talk about, we're going to give you the information, and then we're going to talk about sometimes it's the simplest things that will have the most huge amount of positive impact into the organization. Okay, so I want you, before I go here, I want you to think about human capital as an asset. Stay tuned here because my brother and I, he has got a finance background, are going to try to come up with a way to value human capital from an accounting perspective. Now this is not easy, and it's certainly not going to be 100% precise. But, we talk about human capital as an asset. And I am so sick of hearing people are our most important asset. Well, then show me what you're doing about your people. But don't call them an asset unless you actually think of them as an asset. So this morning, as I was getting ready to come here, the final scribble that never made it onto the slide, if we talk about human capital as an asset and we think about a piece of equipment that we may buy, okay, here's the life cycle of how we look at that nice, cold piece of equipment. First of all, we do the research about this piece of equipment to make sure that we know what's out there on the landscape. Then we buy. Now, every time I say this, think about human capital. We buy the right piece of equipment. We don't just buy any piece of equipment. We buy the right piece of equipment that is going to create value. Okay? Then we hopefully read the procedure manual, or I would hope somebody would read it for me. But we read the procedure manual in an aim to figure out how to maintain it, how to maximize its output, and how to diagnose when something is going wrong. Pretty clever, huh? Okay. I mean, it's so crystal clear when you see it in terms of equipment. Then we also depreciate it from an accounting point of view. Okay, think about your skill set. Can anybody here think of one skill you have that you know isn't depreciating? It's depreciating. Anybody here have one that if you don't fix it? So we depreciate equipment let's think about depreciating people's talent, because it's going to go through cycles and it will depreciate. It can easily also be retooled to appreciate. Okay, so we do this so we retool it, we sometimes upgrade it, and sometimes we will even release it. When it's well past its sell-by date and it can't perform the way it needs to perform. So I challenge you. You know, we haven't done this whole thing. We're still putting charts and graphs together to try to figure this out. But if you replace equipment with people, do we do as good a job thinking about people as we do thinking about equipment? I dare say we don't. Okay? And so here's the one. If you went to a doctor who hadn't retooled their skills and hadn't stayed current and didn't have a reputation and was on their way out, would you go to that kind of doctor, or would you pick a doctor as your asset who had all the positive sides of this over here? Again, easy to see it when you're buying certain professional skills. But we'd like you to take that same concept and start thinking about this in terms of people. Okay, so I kept that on the board there because as I go through this, you may want to flash back to that periodically. And I'm going to trip over this, but I'll trip over this too, so it's over there. Okay, so Okay, so in your head, we have developed an assessment model that starts to look at people's skills, the present skills that they have. And we take it to the benchmark of what is it that the job requires? And then how do we start to value the skills? And we don't do it on a performance level as our 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You know, what we do is we start to look at issues of how much knowledge do they have, how engaged and accountable to deliver are they, and how secure or confident are they in their job. That's a very different way of looking at skills versus needs improvement. Well, needs improvement what? Well, they may need improvement in terms of the amount of knowledge. They may need improvement in terms of their security. They may need to retool their accountability skills. But it starts to hone in on it. And so what we want to say is, do you have the right skills today? So everybody knows, who knows me, knows that technology is not my strong suit. But boy, I am learning every day. Today I learned that this clicker has something over here that goes in over there that actually makes it work. I have learned a new skill. I learned paintbrush to put color onto the thing there yesterday.
With the jetpack people.
Well, hold on, right there. So we're learning skills on a constant basis, and every time you learn something, tomorrow there's going to be another thing, to the point where it's almost overwhelming. So yesterday you were teaching me over the phone, Joanne, go click over here, text, edit. Where's that? I can't do it. But you know what? By the end of it, he goes, so you can train. So day by day, we acquire skills, or we don't. So that's how you have to start looking at people. So we start off at the bottom here. Our ones, unlike your one, which is a good, my one is not. But we start over here with the one. And these are either newbies or they just don't have the skill set. And we work all the way up here to the go-to people or the utility players who have the knowledge, they're accountable, and they deliver.
When you're saying accountable, is that the same as productive? Or
yeah. Accountable means I do what I'm supposed to do, I deliver to whom I'm supposed to deliver, and I don't create massive bottlenecks or cholesterol inside organizations. So yeah. So there's a very high standard over here. Okay, when you were talking about the great abyss, these are the people who can make it easy. These are the people that are going to need some sort of help and training. These are the people that are going to need a jetpack. And these are people who may need to go to the departure lounge. We're just not sure. Okay, but unless we have a rigorous way of starting to say, do we have the right skill set, it's all follows error off that. Yeah.
I was going to say, in that scenario, a 1 or a 2, because they're not already entrenched in an environment and a certain skill set, sometimes you can bring them across the chasm easier. because we
Okay, and here's the rub. These people may have the ability, because they don't have legacy knowledge, to quickly go up here. They say cut 10%. Who do you think's going first? Often these people over here. And sometimes the bloated people who are over here that are making it, like you said, somebody says, yeah, are we going to bring Sally across? And the question is, are you going to be able to come across? So what happens is we use very simplistic formulas to maybe get rid of the wrong people when they in fact may be the right people to keep. So this will start to say, let me look at my people differently, and let me look at the skill set differently, and let me have a different mindset. Yeah.
Just so I understand the wording, I'm curious why you have overachiever is at the bottom of the funnel and underachiever is almost at the very top of your best go-to people.
Yeah. Okay. And this is a constant one. So overachiever defined over here says they've got the limited knowledge, but gosh, they're engaged. So they're actually trying to do more than they actually have the capability of the knowledge capability of doing it. So they're highly engaged, but it's like they're running before they learn how to walk. So we put them as they're doing almost too much, or they're fooling you into too much. The underachiever here, we track this back. They're knowledgeable, they're accountable, but they're insecure. If we take care of their insecurity or their confidence, we can unlock their ability to achieve. So right now, they're marginalized at maybe 80%. And if we just unlock this insecurity, they can achieve.